Hello and welcome back to Grave Whispers. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy drifting into dark, chilling tales whispered straight from the grave, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1. It hits me all at once, like stepping into cold water. Some of the worst people you can imagine are the ones raising these kids. That thought is stuck in my head while I sit across from Seth Wilder and his mother in my tiny office at school, forcing my face to stay calm. The overhead light hums. The air smells like dry erase marker and old paper. On my desk is Seth's file, a neat stack of test results and teacher notes, all trying to say the same thing without saying it too loudly. Seth sits in the chair beside his mother, shoulders slightly hunched, hands folded so tightly in his lap his knuckles look pale. He is 12. He is quiet. He is the kind of kid who never causes trouble on purpose, the kind who apologizes when someone else bumps into him. He is also brilliant in a way most people don't bother to notice. Give him a blank page and a prompt, and he will write something that makes you pause mid-sentence. He has this mind that builds worlds fast, filling them with details that feel real. His creative writing teacher once told me, he writes like he's lived 100 lives. But put a math worksheet in front of him, and it's like watching someone try to read a language they've never seen before. Numbers slide around on the page. He freezes. He can't explain his thinking. He shuts down, then hates himself for shutting down. And socially, he is behind not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much and can't figure out the rules. He doesn't always know when it's his turn to talk. He doesn't always understand jokes. He takes things literally and then feels stupid when everyone laughs. He's been bullied for it. Last week, I walked past the hallway and heard a group of boys laughing because Seth had drawn a character from Demon Slayer on his notebook. They called him names that didn't even make sense. It was cruel in the lazy way children can be, like they were practicing being mean. That part, at least, is ordinary. Middle school can be brutal. What isn't ordinary is what happens when you try to help. I breathe in slowly, keeping my voice gentle, practiced. I've done 100 meetings like this, but something about this one makes my skin feel too tight. Mrs. Wilder, I say, meeting her eyes. After reviewing Seth's performance in class, the evaluations and what his teachers have noticed over time, we believe Seth may be on the autism spectrum. For a second, she doesn't react. Her face stays still, like a mask. Then her pupils widen just a little, and I can see it in the slight lift of her chin. She heard the words. She understood them, but accepting them is another thing entirely. Seth looks at the carpet. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't look at her. He's staring at a dark spot in the fabric, like it's the only safe thing in the room. Excuse me. Mrs. Wilder leans forward across my desk, so suddenly my chair squeaks. She's close enough that when she speaks again, a bit of spit hits my cheek. Warm. Gross. I fight the instinct to wipe it away immediately. I don't want to provoke her. Seth's shoulders pull in even more, like he's trying to fold himself smaller. As he shifts, his sleeve rides up. My eyes catch on something on the back of his arm. A marking. Dark ink like it's been stamped on, not written by a kid. It's not a temporary marker smear from recess. It looks official, cold, clean. 30 HD. My stomach drops so hard I feel it in my throat. I force myself to keep my expression neutral, but my heart starts beating faster. I tell myself I'm overreacting. Kids draw on themselves. Parents label things. Maybe it's from some summer program, some strange camp, a joke. But I've seen numbers like that before. Mrs. Wilder's voice snaps me back. Are you telling me, she says slowly, with the kind of careful anger that scares me more than yelling, that my child is defective? I swallow. I keep my face soft. Mrs. Wilder, I think you might be misunderstanding. Don't put words in my mouth, she shrieks, loud enough that I'm sure someone in the hallway can hear. You said my child was defective. I didn't, I say, louder now, trying to stay in control. Autism isn't a defect. It's not a fault. It means Seth's brain works differently. It affects how he processes things, how he handles certain environments, how he communicates. Seth is an incredibly creative kid. He's kind. He's thoughtful. He is doing very well in creative writing and math, she cuts in, like the word tastes bad. There it is. The real reason she's here. My fingers tighten around the edge of Seth's folder. I feel sweat under my collar. I don't know why I'm sweating. This is my job. I've handled angry parents. I've handled parents in denial. But something about her eyes, the flatness behind them, makes me feel like I'm sitting across from someone who doesn't see her child as a person. I shake my head slightly. Math isn't Seth's strongest subject, no. But he can improve with the right support, and we have... I don't care about support, she says, almost bored. What are his math scores? I try to keep my smile from shaking. My jaw aches from holding it in place. I can feel Seth's panic beside me like heat. Seth is pale now. Not just nervous pale. Sick pale. His forehead shines with sweat. His leg bounces quickly under the chair. His eyes stay locked on his lap like he's afraid that if he looks up, he'll see something he can't handle. His mother doesn't notice. She doesn't reach out. She doesn't touch his shoulder. She doesn't even glance at him. Her attention is on me, sharp and demanding, like I'm the one who failed her. It's the same look I've seen from other parents, the ones who treat school like a scoreboard. If their child isn't at the top, then someone must be to blame. If their child isn't exceptional in the way they want, then the child becomes an embarrassment, a problem to solve, a thing to fix or remove. I open the folder even though I already know what's inside, buying time, choosing the words. Seth is currently below grade level in math, I say carefully. But he has shown some improvement with one-on-one help, and his teachers believe... I've heard enough, she says, and the way she says it feels like a door slamming shut. She stands. Her chair scrapes hard against the floor. Seth flinches. Come on, Seth, Mrs. Wilder says. Not gently. Not like you'd say it to your child. More like you'd say it to a dog that's inconveniencing you. We're leaving. Seth starts to stand too, moving like his body is heavier than it should be. Panic rises in me so fast my hands shake. I'm not supposed to do this. There are rules, boundaries, procedures. You don't challenge a parent directly. You don't interfere with a parent's decisions. Even when you know they're wrong, you document, you report, you refer to outside services. You follow the steps. But I see the number again on Seth's arm. 30 HD. And I remember another number, another arm, another terrified child. My throat tightens. My heart feels like it's wedged behind my ribs. "Mrs. Wilder," I say quickly, standing so fast my chair bumps the desk. "Please wait." She turns her head toward me slowly, like she's annoyed I'm still talking. Seth stands beside her, eyes still down. I take a step forward. My legs feel unsteady, like the floor is shifting. I'm about to ruin my career. I know it. I might even get in legal trouble for this. But the words push their way out anyway, raw and desperate, before I can stop them. "I would be willing to adopt Seth," I say. Mrs. Wilder blinks once. I keep going because if I stop, I'll lose my nerve. I know that sounds insane, but my voice breaks. I don't realize I'm pleading until my knees hit the carpet. I'm on my knees in front of her, like she's a judge, and my life depends on it. "Please," I whisper. My eyes burn. "I'll give you $3,000. Seth finally looks up. Just for a second. His face is blank in a way that scares me. Like he's learned not to hope, because hoping hurts too much. Mrs. Wilder's expression changes, not to shock, not to outrage. It twists slowly into something else. Satisfaction. She tilts her head, considering like I just offered to buy a used car. $1 million, she says calmly. That's my final offer. I stare at her, sure I misheard. $1 million, I repeat, my voice thin. Mrs. Wilder shrugs, then grips Seth by the wrist, hard enough that he winces. "I have an extended warranty anyway," she says, like she's talking about a phone plan. "If I return him before he turns 18, I get my money back. And if I use their biodegradable option, I even get a discount." My stomach rolls. The words don't fit in my head, like my mind refuses to understand them because understanding would mean admitting this is real. "5,000, I blurt, louder than I mean to. "Mrs. Wilder, I'm on a teacher's salary." She makes a sound that might be a laugh, but it's wet and sharp, and then she turns and pulls Seth toward the door. No hesitation. No second look. She leaves my office, and I'm still on the floor, my hands pressed into the carpet, like I might fall through it. My heart feels like it's splitting. I know what happens when parents like her leave. I've seen it. I've smelled it. I've lived through it in a way that still wakes me up at night. I push myself up on shaking legs and run after them. I run through the hallway, past students and lockers and the faded posters about kindness that no one reads. I run outside into the harsh daylight and spot her in the parking lot, walking fast toward a sleek car, Seth being dragged along beside her. "Mrs. Wilder!" I shout, my lungs burning. She doesn't turn. She yanks the car door open and shoves Seth into the back seat, like he's luggage. I reach the car just as she's about to slam the door. "Please," I say, my voice low now, like if I speak too loudly I'll break. "I'll give you everything I have. Just let me adopt him." She pauses. Slowly she rolls down the window a few inches and looks at me the way you look at something annoying on your shoe. $1 million, she repeats. "I don't have that kind of money," I say, and the truth tastes bitter. Seth sits in the back seat with his head bowed. He doesn't cry. He doesn't speak. He's too quiet, too controlled, like he's already somewhere else in his mind, far away from whatever is about to happen. Mrs. Wilder lifts one shoulder. "Then we have no deal." She rolls the window up. The engine starts. The car pulls away. I stand there for a second, frozen, watching the taillights disappear, and my body feels like it's filled with ice. I should stop. I should go back inside, call the right people, file the right paperwork, follow the correct process. I should act like a responsible adult with a job and a mortgage and a life. I should let it go. But I can't, because I know where she's going. So I go to the bank. I don't even remember driving. I only remember the feeling in my chest, like my heart is trying to claw its way out. My hands shake so badly I have trouble holding my card. I withdraw every dollar I have. Savings, emergency fund, everything I told myself I needed for the future. I walk out of the bank with an envelope that feels too light. Then I go where I promised myself I would never go again. The Rainbow Factory. It sits in the center of town like it belongs there, a towering glass building that reflects the sky. On sunny days, it looks clean and beautiful, almost hopeful, like a place where good things happen. People walk by it without flinching. Cars pass it without slowing down. The city has learned how to look at it without seeing it. The front doors slide open quietly when I step inside. The lobby is bright and white, too bright, like a hospital. The air smells faintly sweet, like air freshener trying to cover something deeper. A receptionist sits behind a long desk. She wears a perfect smile, the kind that never touches the eyes. I approach, forcing myself not to shake. My mouth is dry. Seth Wilder, I say, and my voice cracks. I swallow and try again. I want to adopt him. She tilts her head. Of course. May I have his registration number? My mind scrambles. The number on his arm, the ink. 30HD, I say quickly, relieved I remembered. Her fingers move over the keyboard. She nods as if this is a normal request, like I'm asking about a package delivery. Her smile doesn't change. Ah, she says after a moment, still cheerful. I'm so sorry. I'm afraid 30 HD was processed about 5 minutes ago. The word processed hits me like a slap. My vision blurs around the edges. Processed? I repeat, barely audible. The receptionist's eyes lock onto mine, and her smile widens a little, showing teeth. Then she turns, reaches down under the desk, and pulls out a small green baggie. She sets it on the counter in front of me with a soft tap. Inside the bag is something dark and wet-looking, something that clumps together like it used to be part of a whole. For a second, my brain refuses to label it. Then it does, and my stomach drops through the floor. I notice her hands then, the skin around her nails, the faint smears at the creases of her fingers. Blood. Would you like his remnants? She asked brightly. I hear they're great for your yard. I stumble backward, my legs barely holding me up. The lobby tilts. The bright white lights feel like they're drilling into my skull. I turn and push through the glass doors, and the air outside hits me hard. I drop to my knees on the sidewalk and vomit, hot and violent. My throat burning, my eyes watering. My body shakes like it's trying to reject what I just heard. This can't be real. It can't be. But it is. I wipe my mouth with the back of my hand and force myself to breathe. The world sounds far away, like I'm underwater. Then I hear a voice. Mrs. Johnson. It cuts through my thoughts, sharp with panic. I lift my head just in time to see a group of children being marched out the side doors of the Rainbow Factory. There are guards in dark uniforms, their faces blank, their hands gripping the kids by their arms. The children's wrists are tied behind their backs with white plastic straps. 4 kids. One of them is Seth. For a second, my mind goes empty. All I can see is his face. Wide eyes, terrified, cheeks wet, lips pressed together like he's trying not to make a sound. He looks smaller than he did at school, smaller than any kid should look. His sleeve is pushed up again, and the number on his arm is clear, 30 HD. And something inside me splits open, because I've seen that look before. My son had that look. My son had that number on his arm. My son had been led through these doors, and I had stood somewhere nearby, frozen and too late. And I had brought him here believing lies I can barely remember now without wanting to tear my own skin off. This time, I don't freeze. I stand so fast, my knees almost buckle. I rush forward, ignoring the guards, ignoring the shouting, ignoring the way my whole body screams at me to run away. Seth! I grab his arm gently, careful not to hurt him, and pull him toward me. One of the guards steps in, his hand reaching out. No, I say, and my voice is steadier than I feel. I want to adopt this child. The guard hesitates, looking to someone inside for confirmation, like there's a rule book for this kind of interruption. I keep my grip on Seth, holding on as if letting go would mean losing him forever. The receptionist appears in the doorway, still smiling, watching like this is entertainment. I want to adopt him, I repeat, louder this time. Right now. Seth's body is stiff with fear when I pull him into a hug. He doesn't hug me back at first. He doesn't trust it. Why would he? Adults have not been safe for him. I hold him anyway, firm and careful, my hand on the back of his head the way I used to hold my own child. He doesn't feel like my son. He will never be my son. No child could replace what I lost. But Seth is here. He is alive. He is scared. He needs someone to choose him like he matters. He needs someone to stand between him and the people who see him as a problem that can be processed. So I hold him and I breathe in and out, trying to keep myself from shaking apart. I've got you, I whisper, not sure if he hears me. You're not going back in there. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Seth makes a small sound, like a breath he's been holding too long finally escaped. Right now, that's all he needs. A mother. And I can be that if they let me, if I can get him out. If I can undo even one thing I failed to do before. I look up at the glass building that shines like it has nothing to hide, and I realize something I don't want to know but can't ignore anymore. The horror isn't just inside those walls. The horror is that the world built this place and then decided it was normal. Story 2. The job was supposed to be quick and easy. There had been a string of high-profile museum robberies over the last few months, but Diallo wasn't worried in the slightest. He was good at what he did. Ever since he was young, he had loved shiny things, and he'd never cared much about who they belonged to. If something was valuable, that was reason enough. He was perched on the roof of the building, low to the edge, watching his target through the upper windows. He adjusted his black balaclava over his nose and mouth, the fabric warm from his breath. His eyes stayed fixed on the center of the reading room, where the display sat under soft lighting like an altar. Who gives a damn about some book, he thought. He didn't understand the obsession, but he understood money. The payoff for this was massive. The kind of number that makes you stop thinking about morals and start thinking about escape routes. His client hadn't sounded like a collector in the normal sense. The voice on the phone had been too careful, too controlled, like someone trying not to show excitement. But Diallo didn't ask questions when the cash was this good. If a rich man wanted an old book more than a painting or gold, that was his problem. To Diallo, it was a way out, a clean exit. One job, and he could stop running small scams, stop watching his back, stop feeling like he was trapped in a life he never chose. He had done everything right. He'd mapped the camera placements in the CCTV network. He'd paid a museum employee for floor plans and access details. He'd gotten the guard schedule down to the minute. He'd arranged transport, timing, and a route that wouldn't put him near any main roads until he was already gone. On paper, the plan was airtight. There was no realistic way it could fail. His pulse steadied as he watched the room. The book's history was strange, even by museum standards. Radiocarbon tests placed it somewhere around 3,000 years before Christ, which sounded ridiculous because it wasn't supposed to be possible. The client had stressed that it was priceless, not just because it was old, but because of what was inside it. The writing, he'd said, was too complex for its time, more advanced than ancient cuneiform, more detailed than anything scholars could explain. Yet it hadn't been deciphered. No one could read it. No one could even properly classify it. Not my job, Diallo had muttered when he first heard that. He didn't need to understand what it said. He just needed to take it. All that remained was waiting for his associate to confirm the cameras were offline. The system would reboot after, giving him a short window, 300 seconds, before everything came back up. 5 minutes. Diallo didn't need more than that. He held the ice pick he'd bought at a sports store earlier that week. It still had a sticker on it. He'd almost laughed in the checkout line thinking about the fact he could buy burglary tools next to camping gear and nobody would care. He rolled his shoulders, loosened his neck, and kept watching the tiny red camera lights blink inside. Time passed in slow chunks. Then the blinking stopped. One by one, the red dots went dead. The reading room became a dim, quiet box of shadow with only the faint wash of streetlight through the windows. Diallo set his timer. He struck the glass. The first hit spider-webbed it. The second and third blows made it give, and the pane shattered. With a sound that seemed too loud in the empty night, he winced, then forced himself to keep moving. He hooked his rope to the base of the window frame and slid down with practiced control until his boots touched the floor. He glanced at his timer. 4 minutes and 34 seconds. Plenty. He stepped away from the broken glass and moved toward the center of the room. The place smelled like old paper, dust, and varnished oak, like a library that had been closed for decades. The shelves and rows of tables were neatly arranged, solemn and still, the kind of order that made his messy childhood bedroom feel like another lifetime. He barely looked at the rest of it. His eyes kept returning to the display. There it was. A glass case, larger than it needed to be, more like a clear prison than an exhibit. It looked comical compared to everything else. Too dramatic, too protective. Diallo lifted his flashlight and aimed it at the center. The book lay there in a patch of strange darkness that the beam didn't fully cut through. It wasn't that the light wasn't strong enough. It was more like the darkness didn't behave normally. It clung to the object, dulling the edges of it. Diallo couldn't make out the exact shape at first, and he saw no title on the spine. Still, he knew this was the one. His client had said, "You'll know immediately once you set your eyes on it. There is no other of its kind." Diallo held the flashlight in his left hand and the pick in his right. He felt his mouth go dry. He checked the timer. 3 minutes and 43 seconds. His chest suddenly felt heavy, like someone had placed a hand on him. "Relax," he told himself. "Eyes on the prize. It's just a job." He took a breath and drove the pick into the side of the case. Barely a scratch. He swore under his breath. The case wasn't normal museum glass. It was reinforced, maybe layered, made to withstand more than a thief with an ice pick. He didn't have time to fight it the slow way. He lifted the flashlight, turned it around, and slammed the blunt end into the top of the case with all his weight behind it. The glass groaned. He hit again. A crack spread like a vein. He exhaled in relief without meaning to. He leaned in and shone the light directly onto the book again. The cover was black. Not simply dark leather, black in a scorched way, as if it had been held near fire and survived. The texture looked charred. Diallo glanced around the room because the impacts had been loud. No alarms, no voices, no running footsteps in the halls. Coast is clear, he thought. He reached in carefully. He brushed away loose shards of glass from the cover. As his glove passed over it, something about the book's surface made him hesitate. It didn't look soft like leather should. It looked hard, dried, almost stone-like. And then he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. The pages weren't pages. Not really. They looked fused together as if heat had melted them into one solid block. The ink seemed to bleed through layers that shouldn't exist, like the writing was trapped inside the object rather than printed on it. This isn't a book, he thought. This is a brick. He should have been pleased. A solid object is easier to carry, harder to damage. But instead he felt a strange discomfort, the kind you get when you touch something you shouldn't. He lifted it anyway. It was heavy, not just physically. It had a weight that made his wrists ache in a way that didn't match the size of it. It felt like lifting something that wanted to stay where it was. Diallo smiled, trying to convince himself the feeling was excitement. "I found my philosopher's stone," he thought. First lad from Hackney to turn a slab of leather into gold. Then something darker crept in. Curiosity. Why was it treated like this? Why was there no label? Why didn't it have a name? He felt an urge to open it, sudden and sharp, like thirst. His client's warning rose in his mind immediately, clear as a voice in the room. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to open it. It is a historical artifact, requiring the most precautions. Diallo looked at the timer again. 2 minutes and some change. He could resist. He could take it and go. He could open it later, safely outside where he had options. But the book seemed to pull at him. The darkness around it felt thicker in his hands, like it was breathing. He ran his fingers over the cover again. It wasn't smooth. It was rugged, like rock face. It didn't feel like something made by human hands. And then his fingertips started to sting. At first it was mild, like he'd touched something cold after being in warmth. Then it became sharper, a burning that crawled under the skin. Diallo swallowed and suddenly felt lightheaded, like his blood pressure had dropped. The book sat in his hands, impossible and patient. His heart hammered. He opened it. The moment the cover shifted, the room went black, not dim, not shadowed, black like someone had turned off the world. The faint light from the windows vanished as if swallowed. The edges of the room pulled away, stretching out, expanding, like the space itself was being stretched into something larger. Diallo made a sound that wasn't quite a scream, more like a shocked breath. His fingers burned. He dropped the book. It hit the floor with a wet, molten hiss. In the darkness, the book didn't simply land. It collapsed as if it had liquefied on impact. The black cover and fused pages melted into a bubbling mass, glowing from within like coals under ash. Heat rolled up from it in waves. Diallo grabbed for his flashlight and hit the switch. Nothing. Dead. He pulled his phone out with shaking hands. The screen didn't light. No vibration. No life. The air turned into an oven. He could barely inhale like the heat was eating oxygen. The only light in the room now came from the thing on the floor where the book used to be. It wasn't just glowing anymore. It was burning. Diallo backed away, coughing, sweating instantly. He tried to run toward where the windows had been, desperate to escape, desperate to feel glass under his hands, desperate to break out into normal night air. But as he ran, the room moved. The further he went, the further away the walls seemed to get. The floor stretched into an endless plain, like he was running in place inside a nightmare. The windows were gone. The door was gone. There was only distance and heat and that growing blaze behind him. He looked back. The glow had become fire. Real fire. Rising in columns, throwing thick smoke into the blackness. The flames spread in a circle, closing him in like a verdict. Diallo's throat tightened. His lungs fought for air and found nothing but heat. Panic took over. He stumbled. His boots slid on the polished floor as if the ground had become slick. His legs gave out. He fell hard, palms slapping down, and his skin felt like it was being cooked. His eyes watered. His vision swam. The fire's roar filled the void, and the smoke became the whole world. He tried to crawl. He tried to scream. But there was nowhere to go. His consciousness faded, and with it, any chance of anyone ever knowing what happened in that room. By morning, nothing in the museum suggested anything unusual had taken place. No scorch marks, no broken case, no soot on the ceiling. The window was intact, whole, as if it had never been struck. The reading room looked exactly the same as it did every other day. Quiet, clean, undisturbed. Only the book sat in its glass case, untouched. A silent witness to an event that left no record and no body. Later that same day, a class of children came to the British Museum on a school trip. Adam was 10 years old and had the kind of imagination that made adults call him bright when they meant distracted. He went to a public school nearby. His teachers said he asked too many questions and stared out of windows like he was waiting for a story to begin. Today, the story was supposed to be history. Marble statues, ancient coins, boring facts on plaques. But the moment Adam stepped into the reading room, his attention locked onto the display in the center. The book. His classmates drifted around the room with polite boredom, looking where they were told to look, half listening to the guide. Adam didn't move. He stood in front of the case like it had called him. Unlike the night before, the display had a label now. A small plaque sat beside the glass. Kitab al-Azif. Adam mouthed the words silently, tasting them. He didn't know what language it was. He didn't know what it meant, but something about the name made his skin prickle, like hearing a song you recognize from a dream. The tour guide noticed Adam staring. "I see this book has caught your attention," the guide said, stepping closer. He smiled in a friendly way, but his eyes didn't match the smile. Adam looked up. "What is it?" The guide hesitated, then gave a small chuckle that sounded forced. "I would tread carefully," he said, half joking, as if trying to lighten the mood. "The contents have never been decrypted. Whether it's superstition or not, some things are better left alone." Then he walked away to herd the rest of the class toward another exhibit. Adam stayed. He frowned at the glass. A book only comes alive when you read it, he thought. Worst thing that could happen is a paper cut, right? A ray of sunlight slipped through a high window and landed on the side of Adam's face, warm and bright. It made dust sparkle in the air. Adam turned his head slightly toward the light. And on the windowsill, where there shouldn't have been anything at all, a crowd sat perched in silence. Not people, not birds. Shapes packed together in a way that made his brain struggle to count them. They were still watching, their bodies blending into the dark line of the sill as if they'd been there forever. And their eyes were visible even from across the room. Dark eyes, shining. Dark eyes, glittering like wet stones. Dark eyes scintillating. Adam blinked. They were still there. Story 3. You'll look and you'll find nothing. You'll tell yourself it's just the floorboards settling after you moved your weight, or it's something in your headphones. Some weird audio trick, like when you swear you hear someone say your name and then you remember you're alone. That's what I told myself. Even now, while I'm writing this, I can hear them again, very soft, almost polite. But I'm not walking anywhere. I'm sitting on my couch with my phone in my hand. Pretending I'm listening to music like this is a normal night, and nothing is wrong. Don't ignore those footsteps. I did, and now I'm going to pay for it. This will probably be the last time I post anything. If anyone sees this, please pray it's fast. I don't want it to drag out. I don't want to know what it's going to feel like when it finally reaches me. Before that happens, I need to warn you. It started about a week ago. I can't remember the exact day, and that's not just me being dramatic. When you work and sleep and work again, days blur together until everything feels like one long stretch of being tired. I remember it was late, though. I remember the silence that comes after 9:30 in a small Midwestern town, when the streets go empty and it feels like the world is shut down for the night. I was folding laundry in my bedroom. I kept doing the same small loop over and over, from the bed to the dresser, then to the hallway where the hamper sat, then back again. Outside, I could hear the occasional dog bark, a car passing by now and then. Nothing unusual, just normal night sounds. I was planning to go straight to bed after the laundry. The dishes could sit in the sink for all I cared. I'd had a long day, and I was already dreading the next one. I folded the last shirt, smoothed it out with my hands, and as I turned toward the dresser, I heard a creak behind me. It wasn't loud. It wasn't the kind of noise that makes you jump immediately. It was just a small sound that didn't belong. I spun around anyway, fists tightening without thinking, because your body reacts before your brain can talk it down. I stared toward the open doorway and the hallway beyond it. Nothing. The creak had come from the hall right after I'd stepped back into my room. I leaned forward and looked down the corridor. The hallway was dark, and it felt like the darkness was looking back at me. I know how stupid that sounds. It's just a hallway. But there are certain kinds of dark that feel empty, and certain kinds that feel occupied. I considered turning on the hallway light. I didn't. A part of me didn't want to see whatever might be there. Another part of me felt safer in my bedroom, like the room itself was a boundary, like the doorway was a line something couldn't cross unless I invited it to. I actually had this awful, childish thought. What if I stuck my hand into the hallway for a second, just to test it like you test the temperature of bath water? The idea popped into my head so clearly that I almost did it. I imagined my arm extending into the dark and something grabbing my wrist from the other side, or my skin hitting an invisible wall, a limit I couldn't explain. I pulled back from the doorway, shut my bedroom door halfway, and told myself to stop being ridiculous. Living alone does that to you. One moment, it feels like freedom, like you can breathe for the first time. The next moment, you remember nobody is there if something goes wrong. It's not even ghosts that get to you at first. It's the practical fear. What if you choke? What if you slip in the shower? What if you hit your head? Nobody would know until you didn't show up to work, and even then people might just assume you overslept. That was the kind of thought I went to sleep with, not monsters, not demons. Just the cold reality of being alone. It made me shiver when I turned the lights out. The next day I forgot about it. The way you forget anything once you're busy. Work ate up my attention. By the time I got home, I was exhausted in that deep way where your bones feel tired. I sat down for just a minute and ended up falling asleep. When I woke up, it was already dark outside. My body felt heavy and confused, like I'd been dragged out of deep water. I knew I should start getting ready for bed, but the nap had taken the edge off my exhaustion. I was more awake than I wanted to be, so I decided to finally do the dishes. I turned on some music and moved back and forth in the kitchen, rinsing plates, stacking them, drying cups. The sink water ran warm over my hands. I tried to focus on the normal rhythm of it, the boring comfort of chores. That's when I heard the creak again. Creak. It was faint, but clear. It sounded like a footstep on old wood. I stopped in the middle of wiping a plate and held my breath. Silence. The sound had stopped the second I stopped moving. My first thought was that I'd imagined it, or that the house just made noises like houses do. But then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. It hadn't matched my own footsteps exactly. It had been close, but not the same. Like an echo that was just a little late. I kept working, slower now. I turned the music down. I tried to soften the sound of the dishes so I could hear better. I hated myself for it because it felt like I was asking to hear something. I walked to the other side of the kitchen and dried off a cup. Creak. Again, a moment after my own step. Almost perfect timing. Almost. My mind did what minds do when they get scared. It filled in blanks with the worst possibilities. In an instant, I had images of tall, thin men in suits standing in doorways. Shadowy shapes crawling low to the ground. Faces that didn't have enough features. Things from movies that were never supposed to feel possible in real life. I turned around fast, expecting to catch something in the corner of my vision. There was nothing. I listened again, heart pounding, ears straining. Nothing. I didn't finish all the dishes. I left some in the sink and went to bed early, like that would fix it. Like sleep was a door I could lock behind me. Walking down the hallway toward my bedroom, I got that awful feeling of being watched. The kind you can't prove, but your skin believes it anyway. I sped up and went into the bathroom to brush my teeth, then started to close the door behind me. As my hand pulled the door inward, I heard it creak right behind me, not down the hall, not in the kitchen, right outside the bathroom, exactly where I'd been standing a second earlier. My whole body erupted in goosebumps. Instinct took over, and I slammed the door shut, and for a moment I was in complete darkness. The blackness startled me so badly I made a sound, half gasp, half scream. I fumbled along the wall, desperate for the light switch, fingers shaking like they didn't belong to me. When I finally found it, and the bathroom light snapped on, I stood there panting, staring at my own pale face in the mirror. I thought, very seriously, that maybe I should just spend the night in the bathroom. I know how insane that is, but in that moment the bathroom felt like a bunker. Small, bright, contained. The hallway outside felt like open water. I sat on the closed toilet lid and scrolled through my phone for a long time, pretending it was normal. My earbuds were on the counter. I kept looking at them like they were the problem. Maybe the noise was coming from my music. Maybe the audio was messed up. Maybe my brain was already on edge, and once you start expecting a sound, you can basically manufacture it yourself. Your mind can play tricks on you when you're tired. People hear their names in white noise. People hear phantom vibrations from a phone that isn't even in their pocket. That explanation didn't fully satisfy me, but it was the only one that didn't make me feel completely crazy. Eventually I went to bed. Sleep didn't come easily. I tossed and turned, trapped in that half-awake state where your imagination gets loud. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured something standing in the hallway, something waiting, something patient. Then I heard it again. Creak. Soft. It came from inside my room near the doorway. I went still, like my body had been unplugged. I pulled the covers up over my head, even though I knew that was pointless. It was a reflex from childhood, and the old belief that blankets can protect you from what's in the dark. Silence followed. I yanked the covers down, flipped on my lamp, and grabbed the baseball bat I kept beside my bed. I'd never had to use it. It was there more for comfort than anything else, but in that moment the wood felt like the only solid thing in my life. I moved through the house, turning on lights, checking corners, opening closet doors, staring behind shower curtains like I expected someone to be crouched there. Each room looked normal. Each shadow looked harmless once it was lit. After a long time, my panic settled into something else. Less explosive, more exhausting. I ended up crouched on the couch, the bat in my hands, staring down the bright hallway toward my bedroom door. That's when the light in my bedroom shut off. 1 second, my room was lit. The next, it was a black rectangle at the end of the hall. The darkness didn't just sit there. It seemed to spill outward, like ink seeping into water, bleeding into the hallway, filling the edges. My throat tightened. I couldn't move. Then the light turned back on, like nothing had happened. like a joke, like something wanted me to know it could do that. By then, I was fully in fight or flight, and my body chose flight without giving me a choice. I refused to go back down the hallway. I stayed on the couch, clutching the bat, dozing in short bursts where every tiny noise snapped me awake. I don't know when I actually fell asleep for real. I only know I woke up sprawled on the couch, disoriented, with my mouth dry. The bat was no longer in my hands. It lay a short distance away on the wooden floor, like something had gently placed it there. Morning light was coming through the window. I checked my phone and felt a jolt of panic. I was late for work. I sprang up, threw on clothes, grabbed my keys, and rushed out the door, still half asleep. Only later did I realize something I should have noticed immediately. Every light in the house was turned off. All of them. I didn't turn them off. I never would have. Not after the night I'd just had. I would have left every light burning like a shield. But they were all off anyway. And by the time that thought fully landed, I was already gone. The day went by in a blur. Like my brain had decided to protect itself by filing everything under "don't think about it." I came home more exhausted than usual, weighed down by the memory of the darkness at the end of my hallway. I dropped my stuff on the couch and turned on the TV just to fill the silence. I flipped through channels until I landed on some terrible 80s horror movie, the kind with cheap music and fake blood. I told myself it was silly. I laughed once or twice at the bad acting, forcing normalcy onto my evening like a blanket. I started to doze, caught myself, and glanced toward the kitchen. The dishes were still there. I sighed. If I didn't do them, they'd pile up until it became a bigger problem. I didn't put my earbuds in this time. I didn't want any excuse, any possible explanation for the sound. I wanted to know if it was real. I washed and dried and put things away, moving carefully. And every few seconds, I paused mid-motion and listened. Nothing happened. No creaks, no delayed echoes. The longer it stayed quiet, the more I started to feel foolish, like I'd scared myself for nothing, like my brain had just been tired and dramatic. When I finished, I went to my bedroom and collapsed into bed, burying my face in my pillow like I could hide from the entire week. I was almost asleep when I heard it. Creak. It was right beside me. Not down the hall. Not in another room. In my bedroom. Close enough that I could feel it in my chest. Like sound has weight. I sat up so fast my neck hurt. Silence. Then, thud. A heavier sound, like something had bumped into furniture, or like a foot had come down harder than before. I stared at the darkness near my doorway, and my eyes started inventing shapes. The corner of the room seemed too deep, too full. The hallway beyond the doorway looked like a mouth. For one horrible second, I thought I saw a hooded figure standing in the hall, just past the line where my bedroom light would reach. It didn't move. It just existed, like the dark had formed itself into a person. Then it was gone, or my mind refused to hold it. I turned on the overhead light, but I didn't get out of bed. I couldn't make myself. The hallway stayed dark, and that darkness seemed to push against the warm yellow light of my room like the two were fighting for space. The shadows in the hall shifted as I stared, and my imagination turned them into faces and teeth and limbs bending wrong. I stayed awake the whole night. The bat was still in the living room. I could picture it lying there uselessly, and every part of me screamed not to go get it. The idea of stepping into that hallway, into that darkness, felt like offering myself up. When morning finally came, it was the weekend, and the sky was overcast, dim and gray like the world had been drained of color. It should have felt safer in daylight. It didn't. It just felt exposed. I stepped out of my room and turned on every light in the house, one by one, hands shaking. I tried to pretend I was taking control. I tried to pretend I was angry instead of terrified. When I went to the living room, the bat was gone. Not knocked under the couch, not leaning against the wall, not in the corner. Gone. I checked under furniture. I checked closets. I checked behind doors. I even checked the kitchen, like it might have been placed neatly beside the sink. Nothing. Then I heard it again. Creak. It came from inside my bedroom. My scalp prickled. Every hair on my arm stood up. I backed into the hallway, staring toward my open bedroom door like it was a trap. Creak. Louder. Closer. Creak. Now it was behind me, and then thud. I didn't think. I ran. I sprinted to the bathroom, hands slick with sweat, fumbling with the doorknob like I'd forgotten how doors worked. My heart was slamming so hard it made me dizzy. Behind me, the thuds got faster. Thud, thud, thud. So close they felt like they were hitting the air right at my back. I got the bathroom door open and threw myself inside and slammed it shut just before the sound would swallow me. For a moment, everything stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Then the knocking started. Not polite knocking. Not someone who thinks you might be in there. Bam. 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 The door shook in its frame. Dust came loose near the hinges. I backed away until my knees hit the bathtub and I slid down, arms wrapped around myself, trying not to make a sound. It went on so long, I lost track of time. My arms ached from holding myself so tight. My throat hurt because I was trying not to sob loudly. Eventually, it stopped. I waited for a long time. I listened until my ears felt raw. And after that, the sounds would come and go. A creak from the kitchen, a thud from my bedroom. Then, later, a creak right outside the bathroom door, so close it sounded like someone shifting their weight, standing there waiting. The hallway lights were off. They're still off. I can see the darkness creeping in under the bathroom door. A thin black line like a stain spreading. I've been in here for days. I stopped trying to leave because every time I moved toward the door, I heard something on the other side. Something moving in that slightly delayed rhythm, like it was copying me but not perfectly. Like it was learning. My phone barely works. It turns on, but calls don't go through. Texts stay stuck sending. I've tried different apps, different numbers, anything. No one answers. No one shows up. Even when I think I hear a car outside, it passes and the street goes quiet again. The footsteps have been quiet for a while now, which should feel like relief, but it doesn't. Quiet just means it's listening. Sometimes when I pace the bathroom to keep my legs from cramping, I swear I hear something right behind me. A soft creak, a breath that isn't mine. But when I whirl around, there's nothing. Just the shower curtain, just the sink, just my own reflection, looking back at me like I'm already gone. And that's when a new fear started growing in me, slow and awful. Maybe it isn't out there anymore. Maybe it hasn't been outside the door for a long time. Maybe the reason the footsteps are delayed is because it's not following me through the house. Maybe it's been right next to me inside the same small room, trying to match the sound of a human body moving, trying to get the timing right. If you're reading this, please understand what I'm saying. Don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself it's the house settling or your headphone or your tired brain. If you hear footsteps behind you, and the timing is almost right but not quite, don't ignore it. Because once you do, it learns you won't fight back. And it gets closer. And then one day you'll be sitting perfectly still, and you'll hear it anyway. Story 4. People never directly told me I would end up working at the casino. It was just understood. The way some families pass down a trade without ever calling it a tradition. You grow up near a place like Buffalo Lodge, you learn who owns what, who runs what, and where the paychecks come from. At some point, the path gets laid in front of you so quietly you don't notice you're already walking it. The job was an attack on my senses. From the moment I stepped onto the floor, I learned to keep my eyes half shut against the lights and to soften my hearing against the constant crash of sound. The machines never stopped singing their metallic songs. Coins, bells, recorded applause, people shouting over one another, the sharp thrill of a win and the bitter silence after a loss. Even the carpet looked loud. Bright patterns meant to keep you from thinking clearly. The smell was the worst. It wasn't one thing. It was a curdle of old alcohol, sweat, perfume, fryer grease, disinfectant, and the sickly sweet scent of money being handled by too many hands. It clogged my nose and sat in the back of my throat like a sneeze I refused to give in to. After a while, I went numb to it. Not because it got better, but because I had no choice. If I let myself fully feel the place, it would have swallowed me. I could handle the hours of standing. I could handle drunks leaning too close, spitting words and beer breath into my face. Sometimes people swung at me. Some of them were angry at the house for taking their money. Some of them were angry at themselves and needed someone else to blame. On those nights, when a fist came at me, I'd catch the arm or take the hit and then ask them if they wanted ice for their wrist. A man's punch cannot harm me. Sometimes I forget why. Sometimes I pretend I don't know, because I'm afraid of what lives inside me. I'm afraid it will ask for its borrowed strength, and I don't want to answer that call again. That's Gwydion, someone whispered across the busy casino floor, and my ears caught it instantly. My job didn't require special cameras or fancy software. I could pick up the smallest movement, the tiniest shift in posture, the slightest change in breathing. I could hear a chip slide across, felt from yards away. I could smell fear before someone admitted to feeling it. It was a constant flood of information, and Buffalo Lodge was the worst place for it. A neon hive of noise and greed, built to overwhelm and distract. It was like living inside a siren. All I wanted was silence, stillness. People whose intentions were ordinary enough that I didn't have to taste them in the air. At Buffalo Lodge, I could always tell when someone was trouble. I didn't just read faces. I didn't just notice hands moving where they shouldn't. I knew what lived in the heart of every man in front of me. I knew what flutters and tilts inside my own chest. Something stares out from the darkness within me, from behind hidden eyes, and it tells me the truth of people. It tells me what they're capable of. It tells me what they've already done. It tells me what they plan to do when they think nobody will stop them. He is a creature built for the desert, trapped in a neon hive of noise and greed, I once overheard someone say about me. His gifts are screaming in the wrong environment. They were the ones who saw what I was, or at least sensed it. The older ones, the wise ones. People who knew the difference between a man who's alert and a man who's listening to something other people can't hear. They'd look at me in my stiff uniform and their eyes would go sad, because to them it was obvious I didn't belong guarding money for a house that always wins. I was standing between desperate people and their own desperation, trying to keep order in a place designed to break it. It made me feel ashamed. I pretended I couldn't hear them. I smiled, nodded, and did my job. I welcomed them politely when they came to congratulate me on my promotion to head of security. The title sounded impressive to people who didn't know better. In truth, it was hollow, an honorary crown made of cheap metal. It came with more responsibility and more hours, but it didn't change what Buffalo Lodge was. It didn't change what I was. Still, people shook my hand and called it an achievement. They spoke like this was the moment my life had become something solid. But the new position was a burden I carried like a stone chained to my ankle. I dragged it through every shift. I couldn't set it down. I couldn't sever myself from it. It wasn't just the job itself. It was the feeling that I was doing the exact opposite of what I was supposed to be doing. I know now when I truly realized it. It happened the night the Whitman brothers came in. They walked through the casino doors like they owned the air. Two men in cowboy hats, boots, and worn jackets. They looked like the kind of men tourists think are authentic, older, rough, weathered, but they weren't old. Not really. Late 30s, maybe. The desert just worked on them hard. Their skin was tight and burned, their eyes narrow and sharp. Their smile were mean in a quiet way. I hadn't seen them in more than 20 years, not since I was very young, but I knew them the second I saw them. Recognition hit like a punch to the ribs. They couldn't possibly recognize me. To them, I wasn't Gwydion. I was a nickname, a toy, a target. The scorpion eater, the flame jumper, the cactus hugger. If I walked up to them and said, "I'm the cactus hugger," would they even remember? Would it matter if they did? It mattered to me. I remembered everything. When I was a boy, I had to walk to and from home on roads where the sand ate sound and heat made the horizon shimmer. The Whitmans were already teenagers then, bored and cruel in the way some people are when they've never been made to care. They would catch me sometimes. They'd tell me I was off the reservation. They'd tell me I was crazy for approaching them. They'd shove me, throw things, laugh when I stumbled. I was too small to fight. I learned early that my choices were to endure or to run. Of all the times they hurt me, 3 moments never left. They sit inside me like stones. The first was the scorpion. We were out near the wash, where rocks held heat even after sunset. I saw the scorpion first. Small, armored, alive. It moved with purpose, not bothering anyone. I told them not to kill it. I said it like it mattered, like the creature's life had weight. They laughed. They pinned me, pried my mouth open, and forced me to take it. They told me to eat it if I wanted to be its hero. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about mercy. I held it in my palm for one heartbeat. I could feel its legs, its tense little body, ready to sting if it needed to. "I will protect you," I whispered, so quietly they didn't hear. Then I swallowed it whole. "Its name is Sijo, a warrior among scorpions." Somehow, impossibly, he did not sting me. It was like he understood my intention. Like he recognized something in me and made a choice. After that day, I changed. Harm became less effective against me. Bruises faded fast. Cuts closed faster than they should. I could take hits that would have knocked other boys unconscious and still stand. I didn't understand it then. I only knew that pain no longer followed the rules it was supposed to. Sijo gave me strength. He became the one who protected me. The second moment was the kit fox. The Whitmans found the nest and set it on fire like it was entertainment. Dry brush caught fast. The flame jumped, hungry and bright. I smelled burning fur before I even saw the animals, and something in me snapped. I shoved them out of the way with a force that surprised all of us. I didn't even know I could do it. My hands grabbed the burning brush and wood, and I threw it away into the sand and rocks by the roadside, scattering it until it died. A car was coming. I could hear it long before it arrived, the engine sound faint in the distance. The Whitmans ran. Cowards when consequences got real. I stood there, hands burning, expecting the pain to be unbearable. It wasn't. My skin blistered, but not as badly as it should have. I stared at my palms, confused, then looked up. The mother fox was there. She was small and fierce and terrified. She snarled at me, her eyes wild with fear, her mouth full of sharp teeth that didn't belong on something so delicate. She lunged. I caught her midair. I held her an inch from my face, her body trembling in my grip. Her teeth snapped at the air. I could smell smoke in her breath. I could feel her heart hammering like a tiny drum. "I helped you," I said calmly. She paused. Then, in a moment, I still struggled to explain. She seemed to understand. She exhaled into my mouth, and with it came the smoke that was still in her lungs. I didn't cough. I swallowed it like a promise. I set her down gently. After that, my senses changed again. Silence became precious. Noise became painful. My ears began to hurt whenever I wasn't in stillness. I could see better in darkness. I could smell enemies from far away. Nothing human could truly hide from me. I could track the Whitmans from a distance if I wanted. I could avoid them without effort. At least I told myself I could. The third moment was the saguaro. They were trying to chop down a cactus, an old saguaro, tall and patient, a living monument. I went to stop them. I walked right into the trap like I was still a normal boy who believed people could be shamed into decency. They didn't stop. They laughed again. And this time they didn't just push me or hit me. They pinned me to the saguaro and left me there, arms trapped against the cactus's branches so I couldn't pull free. Spines pierced my skin. The sun burned me. The air dried my mouth until my tongue felt like leather. They left me like a warning. I was there for 3 days without water under a sky that didn't care. I should have died. A child should have died. But something else happened instead. Gwydion was inside the tree. That's the only way I know how to say it. In that hollow, thirsty state, as my body began to fail, something moved into me. It transferred into the open cavity of my chest as if it had always been waiting for a door. A pygmy owl, a spirit, the same being. "I am Gwydion. and Gwydion lives inside me. Sometimes I used to wonder which one came first. Was I always Gwydion? Was I always meant to become this? Were the Whitmen sent like devils of the desert to torture me until I woke up into my real shape? I stopped asking. People have rent to pay. People have bills. People learn to put the impossible in a box so they can function. So I got a job. I stood under fluorescent lights. I learned casino policies. I smiled at guests. I acted like I was normal. It never made sense, though. Not really. How does a boy with a scorpion in his gut and an owl in his chest become head of security at Buffalo Lodge? That night, staring at the Whitman brothers on the casino floor, all of it came back with painful clarity. They looked worse than I expected. Years had carved them down. Their faces were hard and used up. Their eyes still had that same cruel spark, though. That part hadn't aged. I could have used my authority to have them removed. I could have gone further, humiliated them, accused them of something, and had them arrested. It would have been easy. My senses told me they weren't clean men. I could smell vice on them. I could feel corruption rolling off them like heat. I didn't need proof to know they'd obeyed no laws for years. But I did nothing. I told myself I was choosing peace. I told myself I wasn't going to let revenge shape me. I hid behind morality like it was a shield. I pretended forgiveness made me better. It didn't feel like forgiveness. It felt like fear. Sijo moved inside my gut, an uncomfortable protest. The sensation was subtle but clear, like a hand tapping from behind a wall. He wanted me to confront them. He wanted me to show them what they'd created. He wanted justice, not for pride, but because it was right. I ignored him. The pygmy owl inside my chest felt awake too, staring out from its dark home. I could sense the way it focused on the Whitmans, the way it wanted to see them judged. I knew what was in their hearts. I knew they deserved consequences. And I still did nothing. Then I saw it. They were cheating. Not in a sloppy way, in a practiced way. The smallest hand movements, the timing, the way they watched the dealer's eyes, the way they leaned at exactly the right moment. Most people would never notice. I noticed instantly. I had every reason, every responsibility to deal with them. I didn't. They left with money that wasn't theirs, laughing quietly to each other, walking out like they'd beaten the house, like they thought they'd gotten away with it. And instead of relief, I felt something worse. I felt like I had let them go. I felt like a gambler who'd been caught cheating and still managed to slip out the back. That same slick, guilty sense of escaping a consequence you deserved. I hated the feeling because it wasn't theirs. It was mine. The casino became unbearable after that. The light stabbed. The noise crashed into my skull. The smell of alcohol and sweat and greed became a physical thing, a storm pressing in on my lungs. I needed shelter. I needed air. I needed distance from all that screaming, so I fled. I don't mean I walked out with dignity. I mean I broke. Something in me snapped, and my body moved with the urgency of a man escaping the fire. I barreled across the floor. I tipped drink trays. I knocked people over. I heard shouts, confusion, fear. I saw my own guards turn toward me, their faces twisting because they didn't understand why their boss was running like prey. They tried to intercept me. I could have crashed through them. I could have hurt them. I didn't want to. Instead, I turned toward the showroom window and hit it like a wrecking ball. Glass exploded outward in a thunderous wave. The sound cracked through the casino louder than any slot machine. People screamed. For a brief moment, something miraculous happened. Silence. Not perfect silence. People were still there, still breathing, still whispering. But the casino's constant roar paused as if it had been stunned. As if Buffalo Lodge itself had finally shut its mouth. I pushed myself up. Shards of glass were stuck at me. Big pieces. Small pieces. Glittering knives. I should have been bleeding to death. I should have been on the floor choking on my own panic. But I stood, unbleeding, calm in a strange way. "I'm okay," I said to the staring crowd. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. I pulled out one of the bigger shards and dropped it. A thin red line ran down my skin, then slowed, then stopped. I probably needed medical attention. Any normal man would have. But I was in shock, and I couldn't bear to stay there another second. I wandered toward the desert. In my country, the desert is never far. You just pick a direction and keep walking until the pavement gives up. Out there, under the dry heat, I sat down and started pulling the remaining glass from my body, one piece at a time. It hurt. Not the pain of danger, but the deep ache of being reminded you have flesh and nerves. Some cuts were deep enough that I knew they should have been fatal. My body pushed the glass out anyway, as if rejecting it, as if refusing to be killed by something so ordinary. I was thirsty, exhausted. I kept walking until I found a spring I could sense. I can't explain that either. Just a pull in my awareness, a knowledge of water under earth. I dug with my hands and drank like an animal. My wounds were damp and raw. For a while they bled again, slowly, as if acknowledging reality. Then they stopped. An ordinary man would have died. I lay back in the sand, staring at the sky, and the shame came in waves. "Thank you, Sijo," I whispered. But it felt like I was thanking a friend I'd betrayed, because I had refused to act when it mattered. I had refused to be what I am. I had used peace like an excuse to stay small. When night fell, the desert turned cold and still. No casino hum, no bright carpets, no shouting voices. Just wind, distant animals, and a sky full of stars sharp enough to cut. For the first time in a long time, I felt closer to my true self. Not because I understood myself, but because I wasn't drowning in noise anymore. I knew I couldn't go back. What I'd done at Buffalo Lodge was irreversible. The incident would be on cameras. People would talk. There would be reports. There would be consequences. And deep down, I was glad. I needed to be unable to return. I needed the door to close behind me so I could finally stop pretending. That night, shivering, I slept in the sand and dreamed of the spirit world. In the dream, the darkness was weightless, like deep water. Ghosts swam toward me without moving their limbs, their faces stern, their eyes full of judgment. They didn't attack me. They didn't need to. Their disappointment was enough. Above and below and all around were vast shapes, leviathans, monstrous things moving slowly, blocking the stars with their size. Their bodies formed distant walls of darkness, making me feel tiny. I felt insignificant. I felt like the universe held me in contempt. Nothing spoke to me. Nothing bothered to explain. I simply knew I was being rejected. I saw those who came before me gathered around a light in the distance. They were together. They were part of something true. and I was far away from them, separated by a gap I couldn't cross. They did not welcome me. I wasn't part of their circle. I was lacking. When I woke, the feeling stayed. It clung to me like sand in a wound. From that moment on, my denial felt heavier. If there was a path I was supposed to follow, I had stepped off it. If there was a test meant for me, I had missed it, or refused it, or failed it without even realizing I was being judged. There must be another trial out there, I told myself. There must be something I can do to reclaim what I lost. Some act that proves I am not just a creature hiding inside a uniform, pretending to be harmless. So I will keep searching. I will find my purpose. But the fear sits under all of it, quiet and constant, like a scorpion curled in the dark. What if my purpose already came and went? What if the moment I chose inaction? I chose the wrong life. And what if the thing inside my chest has been watching ever since, waiting for me to finally stop running from what I am? Story 5. I need help. I think I can talk to the dead. Or maybe it's more accurate to say I can talk to one dead guy. He's in my living room right now, propped up on my couch, leaning a little to the left like a badly stored mannequin, and he won't stop complaining. At the moment, he's going on loudly about how his son-in-law installed a ceiling fan wrong in 2009, like the whole thing is still an active emergency that needs immediate justice. I'm running out of patience. I'm also running out of ideas. That's why I'm writing this. I don't know where else to put it. If I told anyone in my real life, they'd either think I was having a breakdown or they'd call the police. And honestly, either reaction would make sense. But you all deal with strange stuff. Even if you don't have the solution, maybe you'll at least believe me long enough to help me think straight. Because right now, the only person I can talk to about it is the dead guy in question. And he is not what you'd call an unbiased source. I'm going to explain what happened, because I don't know what details matter and what don't. I'll keep out anything identifying for obvious reasons. I'll also warn you now. If you're expecting a story about a spooky little girl in a hallway or a shadow in the corner of a bedroom, that's not what this is. This is the story of how I ended up stealing the body of an elderly man I barely knew, bringing him home, and then slowly realizing I might have made the worst decision of my entire life. My life, up until recently, was quiet on purpose. I'm 32. I've had severe social anxiety for as long as I can remember. Not the kind people joke about where they feel nervous before giving a presentation. Mine is the kind that locks up my throat when someone asks a simple question. The kind where I stand in a Walgreens, rehearsing what I'm going to say to the cashier like I'm memorizing lines, and then still manage to choke when the time comes. Even ordering a pizza feels like I'm negotiating a hostage situation. My brain treats every small interaction like it's a test I'm going to fail in public. When I was growing up, my parents didn't really believe in mental health care. Their version of help was telling me to toughen up. So I learned how to shrink myself instead. I learned to keep my head down, talk as little as possible, and fade into the background. I got good at being invisible. I never learned how to make friends in a normal way. The few friends I had as a kid eventually moved away for jobs or relationships, and I didn't blame them. Staying in contact was hard for them, and it was terrifying for me. I still have old conversations in my phone where I typed out messages, stared at them for days, reread every word until I hated it, and deleted them without sending anything. It's been years since I've truly talked to anyone I used to know. I still live in the small town where I grew up. I work at the same hospital where I was born. I do night shifts as a CNA, taking care of patients who are too sick or too old to take care of themselves. I'm good at it, which surprises people. But it makes sense if you think about it. The job has clear rules. People need things. You do the things. There's something steady about it, something that feels useful. And nights are better because most people are sleeping or too tired to make no small talk. Outside of work, my life is small and predictable. I scroll through the same apps until my eyes burn. I eat the same frozen meals because they require no effort and no decisions. I watch shows I've already seen so I don't have to think too hard. Entire days disappear like that. I come home to an empty apartment, heat up some microwave dinner with enough salt to preserve a body, and fall asleep to the glow of my laptop. I told myself it was fine. I told myself this was just what adulthood looked like for some people. And it was fine, until I met Earl. Earl was admitted about a month before he died. He was in his 70s. Heart problems. The doctors were cautiously optimistic at first, right up until they stopped being optimistic. I'd talked to him a few times before his last night. Nothing deep. He liked old westerns. He liked talking about his grandkids. He complained about the hospital food. He asked me questions about my life, and I answered as briefly as I could while still being polite. He seemed like a normal older patient. The kind where, professionally, you don't say it out loud, but you can tell they might not be there much longer. You can't let yourself dwell on it too much. You just do the job. Make them comfortable. Keep things running. 2 weeks ago, I was in his room with my back turned, checking his IV bag while he talked. He was in the middle of some story, something about a dog he had as a kid, or maybe a neighbor's dog, or somebody biting a mailman. I wasn't really paying attention. I heard a wet, rattling sound, then nothing at all. A second later, the monitor went into that long, flat line. The sound everyone recognizes. The sound that tells your body to panic before your brain even catches up. Code blue. The room filled with staff, like someone opened a door and poured them in. Doctors, nurses, everyone moving fast. I stepped back automatically, trying to become part of the wall. I watched them work on him, pressing on his chest, calling out numbers, doing everything they could. And I felt this heavy, hollow stillness settle in me. I had never seen someone die before. I had never really seen a body, not like that. I expected it to feel dramatic, like it does on TV, but it didn't. It felt abrupt, ugly, unfair. Like something important got shut off in the middle of a sentence. I just stood there frozen. And then I heard Earl's voice. "What's this broad poking at my ribs for?" he snapped. I turned so fast my neck hurt. For a split second, I thought he'd come back. Like maybe they'd gotten a pulse. Maybe he'd opened his eyes. But nothing had changed. The doctors were still working over his body. His eyes were glassy. His mouth was slack. The monitor still screamed that same sound. But I could hear him as clearly as if he was sitting up in bed. "Are you people deaf or just stupid?" I made this weird sound like a kettle starting to boil. A nurse glanced at me and asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about thinking I heard him. She gave me that calm, gentle look medical workers use when they think you're overwhelmed. "It's just the body reacting," she said. "Sometimes you hear air or something. It happens." I didn't tell her I was still hearing him. I didn't tell her he was getting louder, angrier, as if the fact that nobody was responding was insulting him personally. He started ranting about the damn circus in his room, about how nobody had any respect, about the alarm, about the lack of warning. No one else reacted. No one else even flinched. I stayed quiet, because either I was having some kind of mental break, or I was listening to a dead man complain, and I didn't know which option was worse for my job security. I liked my job. If I was going to be the guy who hears dead people, I wanted to be the guy who hears dead people and still qualifies for health insurance. They worked on him for almost 20 minutes. It didn't matter. He was gone. They covered him and wheeled him out. Earl kept yelling as they pushed him down the hallway, threatening that the nurses would regret it once his lawyer heard about this. His voice slowly faded with distance, like someone walking away down a long corridor. I stood in the empty room afterward, staring at the bed, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights. I always thought the paranormal would be something dramatic, like a ghost girl crawling out of a TV, not a furious old man upset about being handled roughly. I felt this strange calm, the way you do right after something bad happens and your body hasn't decided how to respond yet. The rest of the shift blurred together. I did my tasks on autopilot, checked vitals, repositioned patients, cleaned up messes. But Earl's voice stuck with me like a buzzing in my skull. Every time a call light went off, I jumped, half expecting it to be him calling from a room he no longer had. When I clocked out at 7 a.m., the sun was up, but it didn't make me feel better. I drove home in silence. No music, no comfort noise, the air in the car feeling thick and heavy. I spent the next 14 hours in pure dread. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw his dead face. I could still hear the faint echo of him complaining about the nurses and their terrible bedside manner. By the time my next shift came around, the doubt was tearing me apart. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. I felt like my brain was unraveling. I needed proof one way or another. I needed to see him again. I needed to look at his body and hear nothing, and convince myself I was overtired and imagining things. My plan was simple. I would go to the morgue, see his body, confirm he was just a body, have a quiet breakdown in my car, and finally call the therapist I'd been avoiding. Earl's family wasn't local, so the hospital kept him in the morgue while they made arrangements. During a lull around 2 a.m., I slipped down there. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape. He was there, cold, waxy. His skin had that bluish-gray tint that doesn't look real on a person. I touched his wrist. It felt like refrigerated meat. No pulse, no breath. "No voice," I whispered, and I actually laughed a little. "Thank God." "You again," Earl barked. "You got any mints?" "My mouth tastes like I've been chewing on old socks." I swear my soul left my body. We talked for half an hour in the morgue, me whispering, checking the door every few seconds, convinced someone would walk in and find me having a full conversation with a corpse drawer. I told him he was dead. He took it better than I expected. He asked if he could get a second opinion, and I told him I had literally watched him die, so the diagnosis was pretty solid. Bound to happen eventually, he muttered. I just thought there'd be more harps, or at least a buffet. I told him it seemed like I was the only one who could hear him. He asked if I'd ever thought about being a detective. I started asking him questions, trying to test him. I pulled up my phone and searched his obituary right there, leaning against the cold metal. I cross-checked everything he'd mentioned. Names, places, his daughter's name, his old job in insurance, a photo of him holding a trophy for Best Hybrid T-Rose 2014. The details matched perfectly, including guestbook messages from the people I'd never met. I just stared at my phone, then at his dead face. More quietly this time, I said, "Oh, hell." When my break was ending, I told him I had to go back upstairs. That's when he panicked. He didn't want to be buried. He begged me to get him out. He didn't know what was happening, but he couldn't stand the thought of being trapped underground, alone, in a closed box in darkness, possibly forever. "Please," he said. "I don't want to be in there." "Not like that?" And the thing is, he sounded genuinely terrified. Not evil. Not creepy. Just scared. Like an old man who suddenly realized what buried actually means when you're still aware enough to think about it. My anxiety screamed no. Every part of me knew I should leave. But my mouth did something else. I'll think of something," I heard myself say. It took the rest of the shift for the weight of that promise to hit me. When I got to my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I stared at the hospital exit sign while the engine idled, trying to understand when, exactly, my life had turned into a horror movie. This was not how my week was supposed to go. "What did I just agree to?" I whispered. The passenger seat stayed empty. Earl wasn't with me. Not yet. Part of me still hoped I was losing my mind. I could have done nothing. I could have let him be buried like everyone else. I could have gone home and tried to forget. But I kept picturing him down there, aware and alone, yelling into velvet and wood while no one heard him. The thought of it made me feel sick. I knew stealing his body before the funeral would get noticed. The only way was after he was buried, which meant digging him up. I could barely say the thought in my head without my stomach turning. Who digs up bodies? Criminals, monsters, creeps, people who end up on the news. I spent hours pacing my apartment, panicking in circles. The burial notice said the funeral would be Wednesday afternoon. That gave me one day. I went to the service. I watched where they lowered him. I memorized the plot location while trying to look like a normal person paying respects instead of someone taking mental notes for a felony. The turnout was bigger than I expected. His family cried. People held hands. Someone gave a speech. Earl argued with his own eulogy the entire time, muttering complaints about details being wrong and saying the speaker had always been an idiot. If only they knew. That night, I drove to a hardware store 2 towns over and bought a shovel. I paid cash. I wore a hat, because apparently my brain thinks wearing a hat turns you into a believable criminal. I told myself the entire drive to the cemetery that I would get there, come to my senses, and turn around. I didn't turn around. The cemetery gate was locked. For a moment, I almost took it as a sign. I told myself that was it, that this was where my brain would finally take control and force me to go home. Then I climbed the fence. I landed badly on wet grass and nearly wiped out. Something rustled nearby and I froze, sure I'd been caught. A raccoon stared at me from behind a headstone like I'd personally disappointed it. I stared back. We both decided not to make it a thing. I found Earl's grave. My shovel went into the dirt. Digging is worse than you think it will be, even when you already know it will be bad. It's exhausting in a way that eats through your arms and your back and your lungs. The dirt was still loose because it was fresh, but that almost made it worse. Like the ground hadn't even had time to pretend this was normal. Before I'd even gotten far down, I heard Earl's voice again, loud as ever. "You better not quit on me, kid. I swear to God, if you leave me down here..." I looked around, half expecting someone else to hear him. But the cemetery stayed silent except for my breathing and the scrape of metal through dirt. When I finally hit the lid, my hands were shaking. My whole body felt like it was vibrating from adrenaline. I worked the casket loose and got the top open. To my shocked relief, it wasn't locked. I guess most people assume the dead don't need to be secured like valuables. "You came," Earl said, sounding so genuinely pleased that it made my chest feel tight in a way I didn't like. Then he paused and added, "Did they put too much rouge on me?" I told my daughter no rouge. "I didn't notice," I muttered. "Look." "I'm not looking, Earl. I'm committing a crime. I need you to..." 2 seconds. I looked. There was so much rouge. "Yeah," I admitted. "I knew it," he said, smug. I wrapped him in a tarp, trying not to think too hard about what I was doing, trying not to focus on textures and weight and the fact that I was lifting a human body like luggage. I told myself to lift with my legs, not my back like OSHA would want. I shoved the dirt back into place afterward with frantic hands, doing my best to make it look undisturbed. Then I dragged him back to the fence in short, awful bursts, pausing constantly to listen for footsteps or car doors or anything that meant my life was about to be over. "Take your time," Earl said. "It's not like I've got anywhere else to be." I got him into the back of my car. I drove home exactly the speed limit the entire way, because apparently even as a grave robber, I'm still afraid of getting pulled over. My neighbor's Ring doorbell watched me struggle through the front door at 2 a.m. carrying what probably looked like a badly shaped piece of furniture. Inside, I propped Earl up on the couch like a nightmare version of a throw pillow. Then I went into my kitchen, poured a bowl of cereal, and ate it standing up, staring into space and thinking about every wrong choice I'd ever made. From the living room, Earl called out, perfectly casual, "You got cable?" That was about a week ago. Every morning I wake up thinking I'll walk into the living room and find a silent body slumped on my couch, finally quiet, finally just dead. And every morning I do find him there. But he's never quiet. He's usually in the middle of complaining about how modern TV is trash. Here's the truth, and I don't even know how to say it without sounding insane. In a twisted way, it's been nice. For the first time in years, I come home to someone who wants to hear about my day. He listens. He asks questions. I didn't realize how much I'd missed having another voice in the apartment. Someone who didn't make me feel like I was performing or being judged. Earl is pushy and opinionated and stubborn, but he's also the first person in a decade who won't let me disappear completely into my own head. He's already seen me at my worst, so there's no pressure to pretend I'm normal. I can just exist. I've even gotten him to watch things besides Gunsmoke. He likes the Great British Bake Off, even though he pretends he doesn't. He acts like he's above it, but he gets very quiet and focused during the judging, like it matters more than he wants to admit. We play gin rummy. He cheats. I know he does. Don't ask me how. But this isn't some quirky little odd couple situation. It's a disaster. And I'm barely holding it together. The biggest problem is the smell. I can't stress this enough. The smell is not a minor inconvenience. It's not a little musty. It's not lightly unpleasant. It's like living inside a dumpster full of raw chicken that's been left in the sun. And then someone tried to fix it with a single hopeful spray of linen-fresh air freshener. The rot moved into my apartment like it signed a lease. At first it was subtle, just a faint note like something old in the back of the fridge. Then it got worse. By day 4 or 5, it was everywhere. The couch absorbed it. The curtains absorbed it. My clothes absorbed it. I wash my shirts in the strongest detergent I can find, and somehow, by the time I put them on, it's back like it never left. I tried everything short of burning the place down. Heavy-duty odor eliminators only make it smell like chemicals mixed with death, which might actually be worse. Baking soda just makes the apartment look like a depressing crime scene. I bought a cheap air purifier and shoved charcoal filters into it like that would solve anything. It just sits there rattling and wheezing like it's offended by the whole situation. My neighbor Gary has started lingering in the hallway with this suspicious look on his face. I told him I think something died in the walls, which is technically not wrong, and he nodded like he didn't believe me, but didn't want to know the truth either. If I don't figure out what to do about the smell, I'm going to lose my mind. I will also probably get arrested. So if you have any advice at all, start there. And that's just the first problem. Earl doesn't sleep. Ever. Which means I have no privacy. None. Not even a little. I'm going to leave it at that. He also has strong opinions about absolutely everything and will not stop sharing them. The weather, the way I breathe, the snacks I buy, the arrangement of my furniture, the volume of the TV, my posture, my facial expressions. He has feedback on all of it all day long, like he's still the manager of a household that no longer exists. And there's something else. A newer development I've been trying very hard not to think about. It started small. Twice now I've been sitting on the couch watching TV, and my arm has suddenly twitched hard, like a strong reflex. Once it happened during a cooking show when someone said something rude about pot roast. The second time was during a Gunsmoke episode when the sheriff's deputy did something Earl seemed personally offended by. Both times I looked at Earl. He stayed perfectly still, eyes forward. But something about the angle of him felt smug. The second time I asked him, "Did you do that?" He paused. "Do what?" "My arm." "Arms do things," he said. "That's what they're for." I dropped it because I didn't have a good answer and because I truly did not want to have the conversation that would come next. I've tried to be logical about this. I've tried to test reality because that's the only way I can keep myself from spiraling. I'll leave the apartment to get groceries, come back, ask Earl what I missed in the show, then check online. He's always right. I fact-checked everything he said about his life, too. I even drove past his old house once, which made me feel like a complete creep. And he was right about details I couldn't have known. The weird, crooked little free library by the curb. The way the front steps looked. The general layout. Everything. So I started ruling things out, one by one. The first thing I needed to know was whether he was something pretending to be Earl. Something dangerous. I know enough horror movies to know that if a dead thing starts talking to you, you should at least consider the possibility that it isn't what it claims. Now, I'll admit I probably should have done this before I let an unknown paranormal entity convince me to commit a serious crime and then brought it into my home. But I wasn't thinking clearly, and my decision-making skills have never been great under pressure. I ordered holy water. The Vatican has an online gift shop, which is a sentence I never expected to say in my life. I got little vials, blessed, the whole deal. I poured them into a spray bottle and misted Earl like he was a houseplant, while he was distracted watching Gunsmoke. I expected screaming, smoke, melting, something dramatic. Instead, he just sat there, as still as ever, and I swear I could almost feel him rolling his eyes. "I'm not a plant," he said, irritated. "Relax," I told him. "I'm testing if you're a demon." "With a spray bottle," he said after a pause. "Yes." "I'd know if I were a damn demon," he snapped. "Would you tell me?" Another pause. "Fair point," he admitted. Since I'd already started, I tried a cross too. I bought it mostly because I needed to add one more item to qualify for free shipping, which somehow makes this whole thing feel even more ridiculous. I held it up and read lines from some How to Banish a Demon article on my phone. Nothing happened. I poked him with the cross, put it around his neck, and he just said it was, kind of stylish, actually. I tried burning sage too, but it set off my smoke alarm. Gary came pounding on my door like my apartment was on fire, and I had to tell him I was cooking. It didn't sound believable even to me. So if Earl's a demon, he's either very committed to the act or I'm using the wrong tools. At this point, I'm operating on the assumption that he's just a profoundly annoying old man who happens to be dead, because honestly, that's the most realistic option I've got. The next question was unfinished business. That idea shows up in every ghost story, and it's the only framework I have. But if Earl has unfinished business, it isn't obvious. By every normal measure, he had a decent life. He loves his family. He worked, retired, did his hobbies, raised kids, had grandkids. He said what needed to be said. He doesn't have some big tragic secret, at least not that he's told me. The problem is Earl has learned how to use unfinished business as a weapon. Whenever I tell him no, he gets this thoughtful look and says, maybe that specific thing is what's keeping him here. If I refuse to drive him past his old house on a Tuesday night to check whether the new owner is watering the hydrangeas properly, he'll sigh and say, maybe that's the one thing stopping him from moving on. I told him that's not how unfinished business works. He said, how do you know? And I didn't have an answer, because I don't know. None of this has come with instructions. So here's what I still need to figure out, and this is where I really need advice, because I'm stuck. How do I keep him from falling apart? This might be the biggest problem besides the smell, because the smell is a symptom of the larger issue. Earl is decomposing on my couch. I've been researching ways to preserve a body, which is not something I ever thought I'd be Googling at 3 in the morning. Earl suggested taxidermy. He's weirdly excited about it. He said he'd love to have his head mounted like a deer on the wall, which I'm trying very hard not to picture. But even if I could preserve him, I don't understand what part of him is actually him. If I removed parts of the body, would that hurt him? Would that kill him? And if it did kill him, is that even wrong? Is that mercy? Or would it just trap him in some worse form? What if I cremated him? Would that free him? Or would it turn him into a loud, judgmental cloud of ash? I can't exactly take him to a funeral home for help without answering questions that would immediately ruin my life. And I can't cremate him in my backyard, because I live in an apartment and also because I'm pretty sure that's not how cremation works. I've had dark thoughts about doing small experiments, controlled ones like testing a tiny piece first. But the idea makes me nauseous. I hate that my brain even goes there. Part of me thinks logically, his body is going to degrade either way, so learning what matters might be important. But another part of me feels like even considering it makes me a monster. Earl is unhelpful here because he keeps making jokes. He says his eyes are his best feature, which is a bold claim considering they currently look like overripe grapes. Another question I can't stop thinking about is whether it's only Earl. Can I talk to other dead people? Or is it just him? And how would I even test that without doing something that escalates into a full police matter? I am not eager to dig up additional bodies just to check my range. But if I can talk to others, what does that mean ethically? The thought that someone else might be trapped underground, aware and alone, makes my stomach turn. I don't know if I could ignore it. I'm also scared of what it would do to me to find out it's true. Earl, of course, has his own ideas. He keeps bringing up cold cases. He talks about Jane Does who never got their names back. He says I could help them. He says maybe this is a gift from God. It's insane. But the more he says it, the more it sticks in my head. There are unsolved murders in the area, and I hate that my brain keeps wondering if a victim could tell me something useful. What if someone could actually identify who hurt them? What if I could give someone their name back? But Earl isn't the one who would have to deal with what that really means. He isn't the one who would get questioned. He isn't the one who would get caught. And he isn't the one who has to live with the reality of bringing more dead voices into my life. Because what happens if I find someone else like him? What if there are lots of them? What if they're all awake, all trapped, all desperate not to be buried again once they realize there's another option? I already have one decomposing roommate on my couch, and I'm barely managing it. I don't have the space, the money, the emotional strength, or the legal ability to run some kind of halfway house for the dead. I can't have more of them. I can't even handle the one I have. I know I should have a plan. I know I should have done literally anything differently. But I'm here now. Reburying him feels cruel, and Earl is completely against it. He says he'd rather rot on a couch with decent TV than be sealed underground again. And even though he drives me insane, I can't bring myself to drag him back out there and put him in the dark. So that's where things stand. If you've got suggestions, I need them. Ask questions if you want. I won't share anything identifying, but if I can answer, I will. I don't expect anyone to have dealt with something exactly like this, but even general advice would help. Advice about the paranormal, about what the next step should be, about how to handle a situation that doesn't follow any rules, or even advice on how to live with a roommate who never leaves and never sleeps and won't stop criticizing your breathing. I read this to Earl before posting, and he laughed so hard his whole body shook in that stiff, awful way it does now. He says to tell you that Gunsmoke is a classic, and everyone should watch more of it. And one last thing. Earl says his grandkids probably use Reddit, so if you're reading this, I'm sorry I dug up your grandfather. In my defense, he was extremely demanding about it. Story 6. Nobody ever thinks they're the villain when they're looking at a screenshot. Online, it never feels like you're doing something that will last. You scroll, you react, you drop a comment, you send an emoji, and then you move on. The feed updates. The story disappears after a day. The moment fades so fast that your brain learns to treat it like it was never real. It doesn't feel permanent when it's just your thumb. That was what Isla used to believe. Now she's 19, halfway through her first term at university, lying on her narrow bed in halls while cheap fairy lights blink above her desk like they're too tired to keep shining properly. Her phone is close to her face, the way it almost always is. Close enough that the screen lights up her cheeks in the dark. Maya is on the floor beside the bed, chewing strawberry gum. She's leaning against Isla's chair and staring at her own screen like she's hypnotized. You still haven't downloaded it? Maya asks. Isla doesn't even pretend to be interested. No, Maya snorts. Everyone has. That's what everyone says about everything. Maya rolls onto her back and holds her phone over her face. It's not social media. Everything is social media, Isla says, because she believes it. She's lived her whole teenage life inside apps that promised they weren't like the other apps. It's anonymous, Maya says. Then what's the point? Maya smiles like she's been waiting for Isla to ask. That is the point. She sits up and shows Isla her screen. It's just black. No logo, no bright colors, no cheerful icons. In the middle is one single white word, plain and serious like a warning stamped on paper. Seen. It looks less like an app and more like a message someone forgot to delete. So what am I supposed to do? Isla asks. You confess something. Isla laughs. Who says I have anything to confess? Maya's eyebrows lift. You're kidding. Shut up. Maya's smile doesn't go away. I bet a lot of people would benefit from hearing you confess. No one wants to hear me confess. They do, Maya says quietly. Like she knows a secret Isla doesn't. You just don't know it. Isla shakes her head. This is complete bullshit. Maya doesn't argue. She just presses record on her own phone like she's done it before and doesn't need to think about it. She speaks clearly into the microphone. I sometimes pretend I don't see messages from people because I don't have the energy to reply, she says. Even when I do. Then she presses stop. For a second, the screen stays black. Then it pulses once, and a small word appears underneath like a parcel delivery update. Delivered. That's your confession? Isla laughs, half amused and half disappointed. Maya shrugs like it doesn't matter. It's a start. No one's going to benefit from hearing that. It's emotional redistribution, Maya says, like she's quoting some article she read. Everybody ghosts, Isla says. It's normal. Maya's grin gets wider. Just download it. Isla doesn't. Not that night. She makes a joke about it, then forgets it, then thinks about it again for a few seconds the next day, and decides she's too busy. A couple of days pass. Then it's the weekend. She and Maya go out, the way everyone does in the first term before they burnt out. They drink in the Union Bar and laugh at people they'll probably end up being friends with later. Maya gets sleepy and sloppy and ends up passed out early. In Isla's corridor, it's the usual Friday noise, doors slamming, people shouting greetings, the low thump of someone's speaker leaking bass through thin walls. Isla lies back on her bed, her cheeks warm from alcohol, her mind floating in that loose, reckless way it does after a few drinks. She finds herself opening the App Store without really deciding to. Seen. It has 4.9 stars. That should be ridiculous. Something with no logo and no description shouldn't have 4.9 stars. Isla scrolls through the reviews anyway. It matched me with exactly what I deserved. I can't explain how it knew. Be careful what you upload. That last one makes her pause. Be careful what you upload. The sentence has a flat, serious tone that doesn't match the kind of dramatic reviews people usually write when they're bored. Isla smirks, but only for a second. Then she presses download. The app loads quickly. When it opens, there's no sign-up screen, no request for a name, no profile photo, no find your friends, nothing, just black. Then a line of text appears in plain white letters like something typed on an old computer. Record your confession. The font looks like Courier, the kind used in scripts and rough drafts. The whole thing feels unfinished, like a beta someone uploaded by accident. Isla can see her own reflection in the dark glass, pale and slightly blurred. She laughs under her breath. Fine, she whispers, like she's humoring it. She presses record. A thin white line begins to move upward from the bottom left of the screen, like a timer rising toward the top. It looks like she has about a minute. At first, she can't think of anything. Her mind is embarrassingly empty. Her life isn't wild. It's normal. She goes to lectures, eats instant noodles, texts her friends, pretends she knows where she's going with her degree. She isn't a cruel person. She doesn't start drama. She doesn't ruin lives. She swallows, watching the line climb. Then, without planning it, she says, I think I'm kinder in my head than I am in real life. The words surprise her as soon as they leave her mouth. They sound like something she'd write in a notebook to seem deep. They sound vague, safe. She wonders if it's too pretentious. She wonders if it even means anything. She looks for a delete button. There isn't one. The white line reaches the top. The screen pulses once. Delivered. Isla feels a tiny rush in her chest. Not fear, exactly. Just a quick spark, like she's stepped onto a moving escalator and her balance has shifted. She locks her phone and puts it face down on the bedside table. Stupid app, she mutters and tries to sleep. The next day, she mostly forgets about it. Sunday's quiet. No lectures. She meets Chloe for coffee, and then they walk around town pretending they're the kind of people who enjoy slow mornings and fresh air. Chloe is Chinese, studying economics, and she's just broken up with her boyfriend. Isla met him once and never really understood what Chloe saw in him, but she doesn't say that. She listens, she nods, she says the right, comforting things. After the walk, Isla's phone starts buzzing with a group chat argument about missing yogurts from the hall's fridge. Isla doesn't even keep food in that fridge because she knows it will be stolen. It's always the boys, and everyone knows it, but the argument happens anyway because people need something to fight about. At midday, there's an unannounced fire alarm. People stumble outside in pajamas and slippers, annoyed and laughing at the same time. Someone says it's probably another idiot trying to make toast. Later, Isla spends a couple of hours reading. Nothing to do with uni. She started The Heart is a Lonely Hunter by Carson McCullers. She can't stop thinking about the fact McCullers was 23 when she wrote it. Isla is 19 and can barely decide what to eat. The book feels enormous, like it's reaching inside her and pulling on something she didn't know was there. By evening, she's walking back from the library alone. The sky is the color of old metal, dull and heavy. Her headphones are in, Echo and the Bunnymen playing Seven Seas, a song that always sounds like sunlight even when the day is gray. Isla's thoughts are shallow, calm. Then her phone buzzes once. She glances down, expecting another stupid message about yogurt. It's an unknown notification. Seen. Her stomach dips, small but sharp. She opens it while still walking. The screen is black again, but now there's a single white triangle. It isn't the normal play button pointing right. This triangle points down like an arrow. Isla slows down. She taps it. Her music cuts off immediately. A girl's voice fills her headphones, soft and controlled, young. "I kept quiet because I didn't want to be the problem," the voice said. "I just didn't tell anyone." Isla's steps get slower, like her body is listening more carefully than her mind wants to. The voice continues. "I told myself that meant I wasn't responsible, but they really hurt me. People I trusted." Isla feels a sudden heat in her blood, a prickling under her skin. The recording doesn't sound like AI. It sounds like a real person in a real room, holding the phone too close, breathing carefully between sentences. There's a faint fuzz of interference, like the mic picked up a fan or a distant street. "I laughed when they laughed," the girl says, "until I couldn't laugh anymore." Isla stops walking entirely. People pass her on the pavement, brushing by, not caring. She stands there like she's waiting for someone. "I still cry," the girl says. Isla's discomfort arrives suddenly, like she's been caught spying. This isn't entertainment. This isn't a podcast. This is someone confessing something ugly and private, and Isla has no right to it. "It only took one comment," the girl says. "One person to tell another, and then the whole world knows." Isla's ears ring. The street sounds fade under the rush of blood in her head. That could be anything, she tells herself. Lots of people. "I liked the comment that said I deserved it," the girl says. Isla's throat tightens. Her thumb hovers over the screen. She feels like she can't breathe properly, like the air has turned thick. That was too specific. Not in detail, but in the shape of it. Like a hook that snagged on something inside her. She forces her eyes down to the app. There's no username, no profile picture, no date. Nothing that makes it look like a message meant for her. Just the downward pointing triangle. She pulls one headphone out. The real world snaps back in. Distant laughter, someone's music, a skateboard clattering over uneven pavement. She puts the headphone back in and presses play again because not knowing is worse. The same voice, but different now, sharper. "Fuck her," the girl says. Isla's heart hits hard against her ribs. "I remember her name," the girl continues. The anger contained so tightly it sounds almost calm. Then there's a crackle of static, like the mic shifted, and the voice says one word: "Isabel." The audio cuts out. Silence. The screen goes black. Underneath, a new line appears. "Your confession has been successfully delivered." Isla stands there in the cold evening and feels the world tilt in a way that has nothing to do with drink or tiredness. Isabel. That isn't her name, but it's close enough to make her feel exposed, close enough to feel like someone's hand has reached into her chest. 2 years ago, when Isla was 17 and still in school, a girl in her year called Elizabeth Salmon sent her best friend a photograph. It was private. It was meant for one person. A stupid moment of trust between two girls who thought they were safe. The friend's name was Isabel. The photograph wasn't meant to go anywhere, but it did. No one ever really learned how it spread so fast. It was as if the school itself had been waiting, hungry for something to chew on. Within hours, it was everywhere. Within a day, even younger kid without phones had seen it. Because someone always had a way of showing someone else. Kids told other kids. Kids told their parents. Parents told teachers. Teachers held tense meetings behind closed doors. Elizabeth was popular in a way that made her seem untouchable. She wasn't a straight A student, but she did well enough. She was good at hockey, strong and fast. And teachers liked her because she had that polished, capable look. She was pretty, too, but the boys didn't treat her like the kind of pretty they bragged about. She'd had bad acne when she was younger, and even though it had cleared, the scars were still there. Faint marks that made people feel entitled to comment on her face. No one knew why Elizabeth sent the photo. People made up reasons because that's what teenagers do when they don't understand something. And no one ever asked Isabel why she shared it, not directly, not in public. There were whispers and accusations, but nothing that stuck in a way that mattered. Elizabeth left the school soon after. The story changed depending on who was telling it. Some people said she had a breakdown. Some said she moved away. Some said her parents forced her to switch schools because they were furious. Isla saw Elizabeth's parents around town a few times after, but not often, and when she did, she looked away quickly, like eye contact would make her part of it again. It had been a huge thing until it wasn't. The school carried on. Exams happened. Other dramas replaced that one. People acted like time-erased responsibility. Isla hadn't shared the photograph. It was sent to a large WhatsApp group in their year, a group that always pretended it was just for jokes and party plans. But everyone knew it was also for cruelty. Isla hadn't been the one who posted it, but Isla had been the first person to react. She had looked at the photo, felt that disgusting burst of energy that comes from shock and belonging, and she had sent an emoji, a laughing emoji. A tiny yellow face that told everyone else how to feel. That was it. One tap. After that, the reactions piled in. Messages, jokes, more emojis. The group moved like a swarm. Isla had been the first drop of blood in the water. Now, standing on the pavement 2 years later, Isla realizes that the voice in her headphones wasn't random. It wasn't a story. It wasn't content. It was consequence. Over the next week, Isla starts getting confessions every day. Sometimes they come in the afternoon when she's in the library. Sometimes they come late at night, when she's lying in bed with the lights off, her room smelling faintly of laundry detergent and instant pasta. The notifications buzz and her whole body reacts like she's expecting pain. Each confession feels more specific than the last, like the app is tightening a rope slowly, testing what you can carry. It only took one comment. Screenshots last longer than apologies. People you think are genuine are liars. Friends you trust are faking. When I left school, nobody asked why. Isla starts checking the app obsessively, even though she hates herself for it. She tells herself she's only opening it to see if there's anything new, to be prepared, to control it. But really, she's trapped in the same loop the app was designed for. Fear, curiosity, dread, repeat. On Thursday evening, she sits at her desk and opens her laptop, searching online for anything about scene. She reads forum posts and comment threads until her eyes sting. People speculate wildly. Some say the app has scraped data from every platform and built psychological profiles. Some say it cross-references school records. Some say it pulls from deleted posts and cached messages and reconstructs digital footprints people thought were gone forever. There are rumors that it doesn't just pick people randomly, that it matches you with someone from the other side of your actions. A boy known for humiliating girlfriends gets paired with a girl who has been humiliated. A bully gets paired with someone they broke. Confessor to consequence. Isla reads it all and feels no comfort. Knowing other people are scared doesn't make her feel less alone. If anything, it makes it worse, because it suggests the app is bigger than her, older than her, and impossible to stop. She can't bring herself to tell Maya. The shame is too heavy. The guilt is too personal. To say it out loud would make it real in a way she can't survive. Maya would look at her differently, even if she tried not to. Maya would ask questions. Maya would say the name Elizabeth Salmon, and Isla would have to sit there and admit she remembers. Isla tells herself she only sent one emoji. It wasn't the photo. It wasn't her idea. It was just one stupid reaction. But she knows what it meant. She knows she was first. And being first sets the tone. Being first gives permission. She wonders, over and over, what would have happened if she'd reacted with something else. If she'd said, stop. If she'd said, this isn't funny. If she'd said nothing at all. Would the group have hesitated? Would someone else have been first instead? Would that have changed anything for Elizabeth? Or would the swarm have moved either way? Isla doesn't open the app for 3 days. She forces herself not to. She tells herself that means she's winning. If she doesn't look, it can't escalate. If she doesn't listen, it can't get inside her head. But the silence is worse than the messages. Every buzz from her phone makes her stomach twist. Every time someone says her name in a lecture, she flinches before she can stop herself. Every laugh she hears in a corridor sounds like it might be about her. She starts sleeping badly, waking up with her heart racing as if she's been running. On the 4th night, she's alone in her room. Maya is out with friends. The corridor outside is quiet for once. Isla hasn't turned on the fairy lights. The room feels flat and dark, like the walls are closer than usual. Her phone sits on the desk, face up, like an eye that refuses to close. She opens Scene. There's no greeting, no feed, no homepage. Just the black screen and the same white instruction. Record your confession. Her reflection floats faintly on the glass. She looks normal. Tired, yes. Pale, yes. But not like a villain. Not like the kind of person who ruins someone's life. She presses play on the most recent message she hasn't listened to. The same type of voice as before. Young, careful, controlled. To begin with, I saw the funny side, the girl says. I saw it with their eyes. In a certain light, it was funny. Isla stops the audio immediately. She doesn't need the rest. It was funny. That's what sticks to her like glue. Not the photo itself, not the details, but that first instinct, that awful lightness. The way cruelty can disguise itself as humor if enough people agree to laugh. Isla closes her eyes and the memory comes in fragments, not a full scene. The glow of her phone screen, the WhatsApp group name at the top, the photo loading. The pause, that tiny pause, while her brain decided whether to be shocked or entertained. The rush of wanting to belong, the desire to be the first to respond, the safety of being part of the crowd. She remembers the feeling more than the image, that quick burst of energy like a spark. She remembers the moment just before she tapped the emoji, when nausea flickered through her for half a second, as if some quiet part of her knew what she was doing. Then she tapped it anyway. Then other people reacted, and the swarm moved on, and Isla told herself it didn't matter because it was just a joke, just a reaction, just a tiny yellow face. That half second is the only part that matters now. That was the moment she could have chosen differently. She opens scene again. The black screen waits. Record your confession. Now she understands that her first confession, the vague one about being kinder in her head, was nothing. It was camouflage. It was something pretty she could hide behind. It was performance. It let her feel honest without being exposed. The app didn't respond to what she said. It responded to what she avoided. Isla sits on the edge of her bed. Her hands surprise her by being steady. She presses record. For a moment, she can't speak. The silence feels watched, as if the app is counting it, measuring her delay like it means something. My name is Isla Grant, she says. Hearing her own name out loud makes her feel strange, like she's introducing herself in court. She swallows. 2 years ago, when that photo was shared, I was the first to reply. The words scrape on the way out, but she keeps going. I didn't send it. I didn't take it. I didn't post it. She pauses. Her throat tightens. But I replied to the group with an emoji, she says. A laughing emoji. The confession sits in the room like a bad smell. Plain. Ugly. Undramatic. The air feels heavier, as if speaking it has changed the oxygen. I think about it sometimes, she adds quieter. Not enough. But sometimes, she stops. She breathes. Her chest rises and falls. And I'm really sorry I did that, she says. The white line climbs toward the top of the screen. She watches it like she's watching the last seconds before a door closes. There's still time, she thinks. She could stop it. She could make it vague again. She could pretend she didn't mean it, pretend she isn't responsible for what happened after. But the line reaches the top. The app pulses once. Delivered. Nothing else happens. No sound, no animation, no response. Just that word. Isla sits very still. She waits for a feeling, for relief, for some sign that confession is done what confession is supposed to do. She exhales slowly, almost laughing at herself for being scared of a phone app. Maybe that's all it is, she thinks. Maybe you say the thing and it leaves you and you sleep. Maybe guilt is just a weight you can set down if you admit you're carrying it. Her phone vibrates in her hand. A new notification appears bright against the dark screen. From Scene. She looks down and her stomach drops so hard it feels like she might be sick. Recipient is typing. There is still no username, no profile picture, no information at all, just 3 pulsing dots, and they don't stop